Warning. This video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all.
It's the only secure database that's ever been invented. That's the technology. You fail to understand that it's a new technology that is as profound as the printing press or the electric light bulb. You're comparing it to things that you shouldn't be comparing it to.
Right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel and welcome to the week. As of yesterday, you can go and catch me on CPM's channel. So that video is now live for everyone to go and watch. Whiskey and Rum, part 5. Highly recommended. There was some fantastic conversation in there. Today I've got some massive Bitcoin news and of course the charts are developing quite nicely. So we're going to go over all of that. But first I had this question and it's been a while since I've done any, I don't know what you want to call it, educator type content. So I thought, let's go over this question. I'll do my best to answer it. And then we'll dig into the rest of the episode. So one of you guys messaged me and said that the two most common questions that come up when you're trying to orange pill a no-coiner were, number one, why Bitcoin? What if someone tries to copy the same protocol with, say, 10 million max supply? Wouldn't it be more scarce and more desirable? Or number two, if someone could launch a protocol that was light years faster / more scalable compared to Bitcoin, then what happens to Bitcoin? Does it become obsolete? These are the main questions he gets, that Bitcoin is not actually unique and other cryptos could easily become superior to Bitcoin. To say that what if somebody tries to copy the protocol, right, and we have a 10 million max supply, wouldn't it be more scarce and desirable? The simple answer is, no, it would not, okay? And here's how we know. Because anyone is free to do this. Anyone can copy and paste the protocol for Bitcoin, okay? Fork the chain, and if we're not sure what a fork means, in a blockchain, we got blocks, and they are, of course, chained together like this, crudely drawn blockchain. Now, if this is Bitcoin's protocol, this is Bitcoin's blockchain, tick-tock next block, we're going to keep adding more blocks to the blockchain. But if Camel comes along and decides, actually, I want a Bitcoin with 10 million max supply instead of 21 million, I can do what's known as a hard fork. I can fork off of the chain and start my own sub-chain, right? Now, Bitcoin's at the top will continue to do Bitcoin things. All of the standard rules of Bitcoin, the 21 mil, so on, hard cap supply, continues. Every 10 minutes, a new block gets added. This top chain continues to be Bitcoin as we know it and love it. And my fork with 10 million max supply will now start to make its own side chain, right? Its own hard fork. And you can see that the chain is now forked, right? We now have more than one chain coming off. And so the bottom one would be the 10 million supply in this case, and the top one would be the 21 million supply. So anyone is free to do this, okay? And actually, this is not unique. This is not really something we haven't seen before. We have seen this many, many times. This is how we ended up with BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. This is how we ended up with Bitcoin Gold. This is how we ended up with Bitcoin Cash. Whenever somebody wants to change the rules, there are two ways to go about it. You can change the rules by either getting a 95% consensus, meaning 95% of the nodes have to all vote and agree on this rule change that it's good and that everyone wants to implement it, which, by the way, is never going to happen. There are far too many nodes. It's far too decentralized. You can never get any humans to agree 95% consensus on anything ever. So that's how we know this code is immutable and unchangeable and is never probably going to change, unless, of course, some kind of threat comes to Bitcoin. Then if everyone's wallets are in danger of being compromised, I'm sure we'll be able to reach 95% consensus that we all want to protect our wallets, right? But as it stands, you're never going to be able to implement changing the amount of total coins or changing the block size. And we've seen that through history, at least using a 95% consensus mechanism. Now, if we move to hard fork in the chain, like I said, anyone could do that. Anyone can copy and paste the code, change a couple of the rules, whether it's 10 mil or bigger block sizes like we saw with Bcash. And then we end up with this second version of Bitcoin, okay, that runs, like I said, parallel to the original Bitcoin. So would it then be more scarce and desirable? Well, technically, yes, it would be more scarce, but would it be more desirable? No, it wouldn't. And how do we know that? Because all other forks of the chain, like I said, BSV, Bcash, they've done nothing. If you look at the hash rate compared to normal Bitcoin, it's not even on the scale, okay? We're orders of magnitude higher for Bitcoin ask yourself the question, did you switch to Bcash or BSV once this fork came about? No. Would you suddenly swap to a 10 million max supply? No. Would you sell all your Bitcoin and just say, no, I want this new Bitcoin, I want to use this fork of the chain? Of course you wouldn't do that, because it would be way less secure. And there's a nice analogy here is, what if I copied the email protocol and made it slightly faster? I said, oh guys, everyone, I've copy and pasted it. I've made a couple of changes to email protocol, and now you can all switch from Gmail or Hotmail or whatever mail provider you're using, Outlook. You can switch from all of those, okay? Come over to Camel's new, faster, shiny email protocol, and just trust me that I know what I'm doing and it's secure, and that you're not going to have all your data stolen. You're not going to get your account compromised, right? You're not going to do that, because you know and trust Google. Google, if you've been using Gmail, has been doing just fine, right? Whatever email provider you use has been well established, is secure, and ultimately you don't really want any more speed from your email, right? You're happy with it's fast enough for you. It's fast enough for you. You're not going to come over to my unproven, untested email protocol any more than if somebody forks the chain to make a 10 million max supply, or to even try to make the thing faster, then we would all be dumping our Bitcoin to hop over to this new fork with this unproven technology, with significantly less hash rate, with significantly less decentralization. You get the point, right? So I hope I've illustrated here that this first question is kind of a fallacy, right? Yeah, anyone is free to copy the protocol and change the supply or any other feature. Does that mean we're all going to dump our Bitcoin and hop to the chain, hop to the fork of the chain? No, of course it does not. And then to dive into the second question a little bit here, which is what about improving speed, making it more scalable? Again, this is fallacy. There are a lot of people that like to say Bitcoin doesn't scale, Bitcoin's too slow. But to say these things is to simply not understand Bitcoin, okay? First of all, with regards to the speed, the community has already spoken on this. We could have had a faster Bitcoin, but as with any blockchain, when you increase speed, there's a trade-off somewhere else. By increasing speed, we would have had to give up some security. And the community has already spoken and voted, right? We had options to go to a faster, less secure Bitcoin. We've seen the Litecoin fork, which I didn't mention earlier. Litecoin has double the supply of Bitcoin. It's significantly faster, but it's way less secure. So the question is, do you rather hold Bitcoin or Litecoin? Do you rather choose to trust the most secure, the only secure database on the planet, which is Bitcoin, or do you want a little bit of speed and not have your money as secure? Which would you prefer? This is what I mean by the community has already spoken and voted. We've all had the option to have a faster Bitcoin, and the community actually said, no, what I really value is waiting a little longer for my Bitcoin to transact, but being 100% sure that it can't be hacked. We have since been able to build Lightning and other things like Liquid on top, which is indeed scaling, and it makes it almost free and almost instant to transact. So going back to the second question, what if somebody launches another protocol and it's faster? What if? We've already seen that happen, and it gained zero traction. Like I said, Bitcoin with Lightning and Liquid and everything else being built on top of it is almost free and instant if you choose to do so. If you don't mind waiting 10 minutes or up to 10 minutes, then you are free to use the only secure database on the planet, the core base layer. And I think one final point to make on this subject is that we have seen others created. We've seen over 20,000 altcoins created, and none of them have come close to challenging Bitcoin. In fact, all of them combined come nowhere close to even a fraction of a percent of the overall hash rate, of the overall network effect, of the overall total dominance that Bitcoin has managed to establish. Bitcoin has been here for a very long time. It has remained the number one cryptocurrency for a reason, and Bitcoin will remain the number one cryptocurrency. Every year there's a narrative. Every bull market there's a narrative. There's going to be the flipping in. ETH is going to flip Bitcoin, blah, blah, blah. No, it isn't, okay? We've seen this now for 15 years. It doesn't look like anything is ever going to come close at this moment in time. And of course, keep in mind that we can copy and paste the chain and fork it, as I said. But what you end up with is not equivalent to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has had a very specific path to get to where it is today. It had to start small, it had to survive being attacked, it had to be proven, it had to scale, it had to become truly decentralized. It has gotten all the way to 15 years old. If I copy and paste Bitcoin, okay, it does not have a 15-year track record. It does not have the decentralization. It does not have the number of developers working on it. It does not have billions and billions of dollars in mining rigs. It does not have people racing to try to complete things like Lightning and other layer 2 implementations. And the analogy for this path, okay, from Bitcoin being born to today is the same as saying the path is very important for me to take between waking up in the morning and leaving the house ready to go to a restaurant, say, right? I have to take a very specific path to pull this off. I have to wake up, brush my teeth, shower, put my clothes on, okay, maybe eat some breakfast and then head out the door. Now, if I alter the path on the way, if I wake up, put my clothes on, then shower, I get a very, very different outcome by the time I get to the end of this sequence, right? And it's the same for Bitcoin. The very specific steps along the way that Bitcoin took to get where it is, to become a $1.3 trillion asset, to become as decentralized and unhackable as it is, to get to the point where it's got spot Bitcoin ETFs and Wall Street being forced to try to capture this technology, to try to do their best to get on board with it. All of these are very, very specific steps, and simply copy and pasting Bitcoin will not allow us to replicate these very specific steps along the way. So I hope I answered that question. I hope I didn't ramble for too long. The news just keeps on getting better and better and better for Bitcoin, okay? BlackRock has updated its ETF prospectus with many new authorized participants, including first-timers like Citadel, Goldman Sachs, UBS, Citigroup. The takeaway is the big-time firms now want a piece of this action and/or are now okay with being publicly associated with it. So the ETF has had significant demand, so significant, in fact, that these big banks, okay, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Citadel, are now sitting here saying, okay, get us in. We can't sit by and let this thing go anymore. Absolutely huge news. Bitcoin continuing to do Bitcoin things. And there are currently around $1 billion worth of shorts set to be liquidated as soon as we trade above 72K. So I think it's only a matter of time. Do we have to roll over and quickly take out the remainder of the longs? Do we first have to liquidate all the long stops before then we can target the big short squeeze? That is to be determined. But either way, the amount of shorts up here tell me to keep an open mind about seeing a squeeze develop in the not too distant future. As Tony the Bull points out, maybe we've got to finish completing this ABCDE first, before then we can start the impulsive move up. So all of that would of course fit with two things. One, clearing out the longs first before then taking the shorts. And two, all of this would also fit relatively nicely with the idea in mind that we may have to sit through a 60-day consolidation cycle before we begin that final leg higher to what will be not only the fifth of the fifth of the fifth of the fifth, but a left translated cycle top as well. So as ever, one day at a time, but things are starting to get incredibly interesting from my perspective. And another great chart here from Tony, 2-week log money flow index shows the strongest reading ever in history with potential room to climb, as you can see here. So again, it tells us to keep an open mind about seeing better than expected performance for Bitcoin in the not too distant future. And of course, this is the first time a new Bitcoin all-time high has been reached before the halving. And this is because, as TechDev points out, this has been the first liquidity cycle to start before the halving. So this reveals what has been driving these runs has happened to align except for this time around. So you can see here the liquidity indicator, okay, a new liquidity cycle starts here, here, and here, and Bitcoin does Bitcoin things thereafter, right around the time of the halving, this time slightly after the halving. However, as you can see at the hard right edge, this is the first time we have had a new liquidity cycle, and you'll notice it was significantly before the halving. Is this what is driving the current bull market? I would think so. I would think it's largely to do with this. I often say Bitcoin is a black hole for liquidity. Bitcoin is better than everything else that's sniffing out the onset of a new liquidity cycle, and all of this fits quite nicely with the idea that it was never the halving, it was always a story of liquidity. Over in the world of the stock market, okay, this is not your average bullish year. I was talking about this briefly on CPM's channel over the weekend. Hopping in here, you can see on an average year, okay, we are all the way down here at this point. On an average bullish year, you can see we're slightly higher. And this year, or the 2024 to date, we're all the way up here, okay? So this is not typical. Now, why is it then that the performance so far has been significantly above what we are used to seeing in the stock market? And I would speculate the answer to that question is that we are getting very, very late inside of this big parabola. You'll notice this goes all the way back pre-2000. Whilst I do still think there's potentially some room to run a little bit higher before we get that violation of the parabola, the mechanics of a parabola state that longer we go up for, the more violent, the more vertical it starts to go until eventually the parabola is violated. I would speculate that is why we are seeing such overperformance this time around, because we are, of course, towards the vertical portion and the top of this huge parabola. And of course, the funny thing is that despite that huge parabola I just showed you that goes all the way back pre-2000s, inside the last year and a half roughly, we also are working on a parabola within the parabola, right? We are soon to be setting what I believe will be this final blow off top angle. I use 3 trend lines instead of a parabola. because I don't like the way people can just readjust the parabolas. But ultimately, this is what I believe we are doing, right? A parabola that looks something like this. Like I said, I like to use 3 trend lines because I feel like they're much more difficult to cheat. They're much more difficult to readjust. It sets a trend line, and the trend line is the trend line thereafter. But if you'll excuse my crudely drawn parabola here in blue, you can see that I think we are in the midst of putting in that blow off top within the context of a major blow off top. And that, to me, is the reason I think that everything is so out of the ordinary this time around. That is why I believe we are experiencing such overperformance. And all of this, if it doesn't tell you to keep an open mind about actually getting some kind of deflation, okay, some kind of asset price deflation, some kind of big rollover, and perhaps even culminating in a global recession, if that doesn't tell you to keep an open mind about this, then I don't know what will. Like I said, we have a parabola within the context of a massive parabola. So what a time to be alive. Someone was asking me to cover Bitcoin dominance. I honestly don't have a great deal to say about this, right? Objectively speaking, what can we say? All we can say is the thing has been range bound for some time. In fact, it's really done nothing since October. Objectively speaking, it is holding this upward sloping red support line. So that's something. And it is compressing at the hard right edge, okay? We are squeezing between here and here. So at some point soon, we are probably going to get a breakout. Which direction it goes is anybody's guess. If I had to guess, I would lean more on the balanced probabilities that we've probably got one final push higher. Now, I don't know how high, but I would think we probably do something like this. And then if we're going to have an alt season, that was where we would see that begin. I think we've got one more squeeze to the upside, whilst Bitcoin probably runs towards its new all-time highs into price discovery. And then we should start to see the speculation get wild. Then we should start to see, if it's going to happen at all, rotation out of Bitcoin and into alt season. And that's where I'd expect to see this downtrend truly begin. Of course, we have to be open to the fact that maybe alt season is about to start any day now, and we're about to see this. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Personally, as you know, I've been very consistent in saying I don't think that happens. I think Bitcoin dominance goes way higher. But either way, we'll take it one day at a time. We'll keep an eye on it. I don't really mind either way what happens, to be honest. I do notice Bitcoin is thinking about doing some Bitcoin things, isn't it? It is working perhaps on a breakout with a downward sloping blue resistance line. Is this, instead of going to be a consolidation cycle, are we about to come out of here swinging? Are we about to start this leg up to 90 plus K in the not too distant future? Do we have to not worry about weathering a 60-day consolidation cycle? And of course, the way that we will deal with that, the way we'll know is if this breakout is for real, we start to close multiple daily candle closes outside of this downward sloping blue resistance line, then I will accept this as a real breakout. In terms of the cycle, I've been saying over and over again, all the while we're above the cycle low, the thing is bullish bias, and I'm not going to start to worry until we lose that cycle low. If indeed we were to fire off from here, what would this be objectively speaking? Cycle low, little bounce, higher low, breakout, moving higher up into that next 60-day cycle low time frame. So overall, right, let's see. Of course, we have to be open to seeing more compression, as I showed you from Tony the Bull earlier, that ABCDE pattern. Maybe that's what's coming, but the longer this thing can stay above the downward sloping blue resistance line, the more significant it becomes. We do still have to be open to this. I think this is not off the table until we get some proper breakouts, until we start to clear this local high cluster back here from the prior all-time high at around 74K. Once, assuming we can get above that, I think we could breathe a sigh of relief. I think it's much more likely that what comes next is something more like this, and we'll have a pullback into that next 60-day cycle low, perhaps higher up, followed by another daily and weekly cycle low shortly thereafter. Is it possible then, zooming out, we're about to continue to validate the third angle of attack? Is this the third one coming in ahead of schedule, perhaps slightly ahead of schedule? Like I said, we're going to find out. For now though, I do think it's too early to start breathing a sigh of relief. We still have to be open to this as some kind of 60-day consolidation cycle. But undeniably, like I said, if this breakout was for real, then strap in, because 100K is loading. Notice gold's still doing gold things, so happy days there. Is the dollar going to confirm this as a breakout retest resumption, or is this thing going to roll over? Hopefully it rolls over. Hopefully we get to label that 3-year cycle low a little bit later in the year. But like I've been saying over and over again, all the while we stay above this breakout. All the while, especially if we can trade above the local high cluster at 105-ish, then this is a real breakout. That is a real 3-year cycle low. And to me, that says things are going to get very, very interesting in the not too distant future. And I think last but not least, something worth just touching on is the stock market. Okay, we're going to find out a few things, aren't we? Either we're going to have some kind of orderly walk down, cycle low and go, happy days, add the exposure back, long and strong. Or we're going to have some big plunge into a weekly cycle low and say, yep, that's definitely the weekly cycle low. We don't have to worry about entertaining perhaps a weekly cycle low coming another daily cycle later. Again, if this is the case, we get this V plunge into a weekly cycle low, we'll just add along here, get back to full exposure, ready for that final blow off top moment. Or if what we see is massive strength come into this market, if this thing continues to be bid, right, and then we get a cycle low slightly higher up, again, I'll still be looking to add out of this cycle low, ready to capture the final explosive move higher. But this will tell me for sure, if this happens, that this is completely abnormal behavior to see this level of strength in a market. It would tell me that we really are entering bananas and berserk mode and that everything is about to go absolutely vertical. So looking to be seeing if I can receive some subtle hints from the market. All the while we're under the blue resistance line, then I would say this is normal and to be expected. Like I said, if we get some big push like this and then a cycle low higher up, and that's where we end up re-entering, then that will just be a hint from the market that there is loads more strength than is normal in this current market environment. As always, either way, we're going to learn something. Either way, we're going to take it one day at a time. So I hope you have a fantastic week. Make sure you tune in for the rest of the week as I continue to update you guys. There should be, hopefully, if I've done it right, a link to that chat with CPM and Cobra and Darth here somewhere in the middle of the screen. So go and click that. Enjoy that video. And until next time, take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.